Please call this meeting to order. All right. So welcome to the public hearing for the Official Community Plan Amendment 7/11/2014 and the Zoning Bylaw Amendment 7/12/2014. So the first thing we want to do is adopt the agenda for the public hearing. Hollie, Councillor Blanchette and Councillor Salt. All in favor? All right. The public hearing will proceed as follows. Braden, Corporate Officer Braden Hutchins will give us a brief overview of the proposed amendments. Secondly, we'll read all letters received from the public regarding the proposed amendment. And thirdly, comments from the public will be heard by council. And following the two public hearings tonight, the regular council meeting will take place. And it's during the regular council meeting that public comments received during this public hearing will be discussed by the council. So Corporate Officer Hutchins.
Thank you. The topic of the public hearing tonight is Official Community Plan Amendment 7/11/2014, Zoning Bylaw Amendment 7/12/2014. The purpose of the two amendments essentially is to rezone and redesignate 1980 Cranberry Place, which is the Jehovah's Witness Church just north of the Best Western Hotel. Change that from public institutional to R1, residential 1. That change in designation is in line with the neighboring properties, that all the neighboring houses are also R1. And I should also note that the change in designation, the rezoning, does not necessarily mean that the building itself will be in a state where it can be occupied. There are building code and occupancy regulations that would need to be met before it was actually allowed to be a residential dwelling. But I gather that the purpose of this rezoning application is to allow for the purchasing to take place, to allow for the property, which is currently a church, to change hands to people who want to be residential owners. And this is the first stage in the requirement of that process. And then once this was complete, then they'd be allowed, and the purchase was made, we would be allowed to turn that building into a dwelling. So this was advertised both through referrals to TELUS, BC Hydro, Ministry of Transportation, etc. And letters were sent to the vicinity to all neighbors. The referrals were brought back to council at the last meeting, and there was none of significant concern. At this time, no verbal and written comments have been received at the village office. It's been totally quiet. My last duty as corporate officer, before I pass the floor back over to the mayor, acting mayor, is to invite members of the public to present written submissions. And being none.
Okay. Seeing as there are no written comments, are there any public comments? And if there are, please restrict the comments to the matter at hand. State your name and your address prior to commenting. And in regards to the meeting conduct, no one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making his or her views known. During the course of this public hearing, people sometimes tend to become enthusiastic or emotional. You can do that if you want to. Regardless of whether you favor or oppose any particular application or the argument, please refrain from applause or any other expressions of emotion. And so if anybody has any public comment, please step up to the podium and state your name and your address. Okay. Hearing none, this will be the second call for public comments. And finally, the third call for public comments. So, thank you for your comments. And following this meeting, we will commence into the regular council meeting, and I declare this meeting adjourned. Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order for Tuesday, February the 11th, 2014. And the vision of Valemount is striving for a vibrant and balanced community, and our mission is to serve the community and embrace opportunity. So we're going to start this meeting with adopting the agenda. I have one change to the agenda. Under number 21, notice to proceed in camera. It says nil, but there is one legal item that's going to be talked about. So with that amendment, are there any other amendments? And if not, we just need somebody to move and second it. Councillor Sultan and Councillor Bullock, and all in favor? The next order of business will be to adopt the previous minutes. Are there any changes or amendments to the previous minutes? We need a mover. Councillor Bullock and Councillor Blanchette, all in favor? Today we have a delegation from the Robson Valley Support Society. We have Shelley Battensby here to talk about the Robson Valley Support Society. Welcome, Shelley.
Thanks. I've asked
And
Beth Russell from VAX to join me. This is kind of a partner initiative. Robson Valley Support Society and VAX are discussing a partnership project that we would be applying to CBT's Community Initiatives in Affected Areas program. So we're here tonight just to kind of get a sense of council's consideration for part of our idea. We understand that you can't give us approval at this stage because we don't even know if we have the money. We're talking about doing an art project. That's the VAX piece, and around kind of some social value as far as building strong communities, healthy families, that type of thing. And that's where Robson Valley Support Society steps in. In 2003, we had partnered for a project called Community Heart, and there's remnants of it around the village to this day. There's a mural on Home Hardware, for instance. That was one of the projects that had come out of that project. So this is kind of renewing that project with a slightly different focus. One of the things that we were wanting to do with this was to actually have one of those art projects to result in a community art installation piece, something fairly large scale, something permanent that would become part of the village. And that's why we're here today. So I don't know how much we can tell you because we don't know an awful lot at this point. So I guess all we're just wanting to know is it even a possibility? Is it something council would even support in theory? We understand that that's not an absolute decision. We're looking at the kind of the vision we have now is something, we like the idea of the salmon because it symbolizes community and coming home to your roots, and it's also a big part of Valemount with the tourist booth and the salmon run and all of that, and having some kind of permanent structure that would have a salmon theme in it, that community members would participate in creating. The salmon at the very least, not necessarily the art installation piece, that's a bit more structural. And so some of the considerations that we would have to probably look into are, is it needing concrete footings? Is it needing to be fenced off for liability purposes after the fact? That type of things. None of which we have a lot of details on at this point. That's something that we would bring, here's the actual project. At this point, we're just saying, is this even something that would be a possibility that we can then build into our proposal or not? So, a lot of gray.
Do you have an idea of where you'd like to put this when you're finished?
That we'd like the idea of being somewhere in this area, somewhere near the village office, the tourist booth, the salmon spawning grounds, but a specific area, no. And that is, again, is totally up to council.
Do you have some kind of size in mind? Like just
the rough sketch of kind of what we're looking at is 12 feet in diameter and 8 feet high. And it would be a steel structure, so it would need some kind of concrete footing. And the person that we're talking to is envisioning something kind of circular and using a lot of outsourced and reclaimed materials, giving it a bit of a local input and feel as well.
Okay.
Something visually appealing, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a group effort? Will there be one artist involved in the project? How?
So the way Community Heart works is that there's an artist assigned to facilitate, oversee, whatever you want to call it, each project. The art project would be of various mediums. In this particular one, it would be this metal art thing. there would then be local participants that would help in the creation of it. And this would be needing those people to also then maybe participate in some of the assembly and stuff as well. How much village would get involved in that would be, your decision as far as liability and work crew commitments and that type of thing. But this would definitely have community involvement. So the artist becomes kind of the visionary and the facilitator and the foreman, if you will.
So Shelley, are you thinking of like a dinosaur, to go into Drumheller? Like, are you thinking of a big structure like that? Or more like
large.
a painting? Or more...
No, something
like
three-dimensional.
the egg
something,
at Vegreville, and that kind of thing, something that Valemount is known for, is that?
No, that would be a great thing if they became known for it, and we would say, hey, this was a great project that the community did. That isn't kind of our intention. It was more because with the theme this year with Community Heart, if we get the funding, is building strong and healthy communities, and we just thought that was so symbolic of the project and of what we believe Valemount stands for. So that's not our intention that this becomes that iconic representation, but.
Another question about when will you have a better idea of what the project will look like? Is that when you're putting together your application for CBT, or
Yeah.
will we have, is that something that you can, some more information that you can bring to us then, or?
And so at this point, like I said, we're not talking in absolutes. It's all kind of gray and fuzzy, and I wish I could get more from you, but or give more to you, I should say. But if you're wanting more information, I can give it to you as it comes in. Okay. We definitely would have to have some kind of sketch of what we're looking at by the time the CBT grant application is due, which is the end of the month.
Yeah.
But even then, if it's something that CBT is approved, it's still coming back to you for that final approval, because we aren't dealing in anything that's defined at this point.
Okay.
So you're not needing a letter of support or anything?
No, at this point, we're just, is this something that we should even consider putting in our application? That's kind of where we're at. So we're not even at that stage of this needs the village approval, that this is going to go forward and, structurally liability, whatever, this is what's needed. Do you have anything to add?
It's, what this is will be a series of workshops, like art workshops. 4 or 5 of them is what the proposal will include, and one of the projects will be, possibly, is this project here. So there'll be other art projects, not nearly to this scale, but it's Valemount Arts and Cultural Society working with Robson Valley Support Society, the two partnering together. And of course, the Support Society providing the real social needs for our community. There'll be discussion at every workshops, and some of these workshops will last more than one time. There might be a series of 2 or 3, and we'll be using local artists for everyone.
Sounds like a good venture.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
I think it's pretty hard to approve anything that we don't really know what it is at this point.
Yeah, and so I think all that we're looking for at this point is just some direction that, yes, this is something that we would consider given better information.
Sure.
And, it's because it is a pretty large scale that we haven't even got all the pieces together, but we needed to come in because the council meetings and the application deadline, and they didn't really line up. So here we are talking about a lot of unknowns. It really is just, would it even be something that would be considered?
And again, it depends on it depends on the funding, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Your Worship, if I could just speak from
Go
a
ahead.
staff perspective. I would encourage you to come in later this week or next and talk to myself or Yanciw regarding the permits that would be required, especially if it was going to be on village property.
Okay.
And we'd have to look at talking with Dean, the building inspector, and making sure everything from that point of view was in order. Because that might play a role into it. And then one of the requirements on the initial stages of the application is, are your permits in order, or do you have a plan in place to get those permits from the variety of the government? And just to make sure that you've checked all those boxes before you get too far. So we'd be happy to have that conversation.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, we're just basically looking at is this something that we're going to include as we move forward, is all that we're really looking for.
In theory, it sounds like a wonderful relationship, and I would support a project that, once we had a little more information. But yeah, in theory, yeah, it sounds great.
Because you're wanting to put it on public, on village property, correct? Probably?
Yeah, more than likely.
Yeah.
Somewhere that's visible to everybody, but,
I think you should go for it. It sounds really good.
okay. Okay, and that, yeah, we're just looking for that sense of direction, so thank you for that.
So the staff recommendation was just that we receive this report from Robson Valley Support Society and VAX. So can I have a Councillor Salton, Councillor Bullock, all in favor? Everybody is. Okay. So now we move into the Committee of the Whole. And we are about to receive a presentation from village staff regarding a permanent street vendor bylaw. So, your staff.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I guess first let me just speak to Committee of the Whole and both council and for citizens here. The goal of Committee of the Whole is to provide a space for in-depth discussion of a policy or a bylaw that council's considering without actually having to get into actually doing a reading of that bylaw and carrying it through. So it's a wonderful time for council to debate the street vendor bylaw, and then I'll take a lot of notes and come back to the next council meeting with second reading if all's in place for the street vendor bylaw. So that's kind of the goal for tonight. Building on that, just a little bit of background on, I think, where Valemount's at with respect to the street vendor bylaw and how we've kind of structured the current bylaw.
Can I just,
Yeah.
didn't we already pass first reading of this bylaw at the last meeting, so this was actually
Yes.
second reading? Okay.
No. So that's a great question.
Okay.
So we did first reading at the last meeting, but because of there was a number of nuances in the first reading that council was kind of like,
Sure.
let's understand more, or don't maybe not like that part of it. Council made the recommendation to go into committee of the whole at this council
Okay,
meeting
so this is in lieu of,
in lieu of second
Okay,
reading.
thank
And
you.
the reason we're not doing both committee of the whole and second reading is because if council comes up with any substantive
Great.
recommendations now, I would need to then go away and rewrite the bylaw
thank you.
for second reading.
Okay.
So, broad strokes, the current bylaw that went to first reading, and which is prefaced on the pilot project for street vendors, was based on the recognition that there's really two types of street vendors within Valemount. And the way we've kind of broken it down is there's the permanent type, which is the street vendors that we've said are in Valemount for 15 or more days within a calendar year. They're the people that are in Valemount year round and want to set up shop somewhere year round. Conversely, then we've got street vendor minor or a mobile street vendor, and they're the guys that sell fish, the people that come sell apples, and they pass by on the highway in the summer. They're here once a weekend or for 3 months or whatever. And we said that those are kind of people who are arbitrarily perhaps, but here within 14 days or less within a calendar year. That was kind of a distinction that we came up with ourselves, and it wasn't something that we saw actually in benchmarking with other communities. That being said, benchmarking with other communities actually was interesting. I think the members of the Advisory Planning Commission, some of them are here, enjoyed that. But one of the things that's really apparent when you do benchmarking with other communities is the degree of diversity in bylaws regarding street vendors and mobile vendors. Often because of past precedent, often because of the size of the community and the number of potential street vendors. Bigger communities have multiple street vendors competing for space, where small ones like ours have maybe one, if any. And so when you look at other bylaws, it's hard to tell what are the best practices to pull from and what is just there because of circumstance. What we did when we drafted this current bylaw that's in front of council is we took the common things that are in place regarding water, sewer, utilities, garbage, signage, that are like pretty standard logical things across the board. But the one place that really stands out with benchmarking with other communities and where we differ is the the no parking on private land. So the vast majority of communities within British Columbia, from what I've heard, is about 95% prevent street vendors and mobile vendors from parking on private land. And the reason for this is that they're very hard to regulate because they're vehicles, they're not buildings, and it's really hard to manage street vendors when they park on private land. The APC begged to differ, and they said, you know, we're really small, we don't need to be that complicated. The issues aren't that great in Valemount. Let's let them, the recommendation to council was let's indeed let them park on private land. And so the really unique aspect, I think, the piece that stands out in this bylaw is when you take the distinction between a mobile vendor, which is the 14 days or less, or a street vendor minor, however you want to call it, and a street vendor or a street vendor major, which is 15 or more days. We've said either can park on both public or private land. If it's public land, there's the 4 designated spots. The one that you're most familiar with is the one right here. If it's private land, there's 2 different processes, depending on if you're a minor or major, mobile or a street. And the minor is just a letter of permission from the property owner, and it goes to staff for consideration. And we say, yep, the guy at the Shell station wants to allow the guy with the chainsaw to cut his wood for 14 days in the summer. Check, no problem. But if it's a major, a permanent fixture in the community, if it's Dave Grant's chip truck wanting to park in the commercial district downtown for days on end or weeks on end, what the bylaw kind of says is, why is that any different from the land use process? Why is that any different from the development permit that's currently in this agenda for Michael Lewis that has to apply for a patio? Why is that different from the temporary use permit that the community church had to apply for to open up on 5th Avenue? And so that's kind of a position that no other community that I saw had taken, applying land use planning principles to street vendors. But in doing so, I felt as staff I could most objectively say to Dave and to other street vendors that come in, we have a process that works, and the provincial government says that works for land use planning. Because you are arguably altering the landscape of a community or a neighborhood to the same scope as say a church or the patio for the brewery, whatever it might be, you should have to pay the same fees and go through the same or a very similar process. And on one hand, it seems like a lot of red tape for Valemount and a lot of bureaucracy. On the other, it provides both, I think, council and staff with a little bit of reassurance and protection to say we have that space to consult with other community members, with nearby businesses, with landowners, and see what they have to say. I'm going to leave it there because I've talked at length. But I would say that there is no right answer to this. Other than that, I think because we are small and this is not a negative issue, I don't believe in our community. We've only had 2 complaints of the current street vendor. That a solution that is simple would be better. And I hope that the current bylaw does that, but I'm certainly open to recommendations, changes, whatever you might need.
Okay. Thanks. Does anybody have any comments or questions for Corporate Officer Hutchins?
No, this one took a long time because it's hard to objectively think about later other than what we're dealing with now. And I agree. I came in and I was, the red tape, it just didn't make sense to me. Oh, there's so much red tape. But again, that's for today, for the vendor that we're dealing with today. But we do have to cover ourselves in the future. So after reading the bylaw numerous times, the only thing I have a concern about actually is the minor vendor. I don't think 14 days is enough, personally, if you look at the food side of it, because let's take the apple guy, for instance, or somebody that would come in every consecutive weekend through the growing season. What happens if instead of 14 days, they're here for 16 days? Like, where's the leniency in that? Is there something that will, subject to 6 days, or there's a total of 20 or something that covers that part of it?
And I just have a further comment on that. Who monitors that, right? Right. If it's 14 days or if it's 15 days.
It's super gray, it would be.
Our non-existent bylaw officer.
Our corporate officer.
Yeah.
That's not his lunch break.
I wonder if I could jump in.
Sure.
Well, I'm going to Shell to get some jerky. If it was more something like, I want to say 30 days, or and not more than say 3 days in a calendar week.
Okay.
So if somebody came for a long weekend, Friday, Saturday,
Yes.
Sunday, Sunday,
Okay.
Monday, that we're not saying, you can set up for 3 days, don't worry about it, or something like that, and then 30 days.
Yeah,
We can
okay.
play around with that, and I can mull that over. But when I read it a second time after I went into the agenda, I said, I think there's a few guys that would be here a lot longer
Yeah.
than 14 days.
Any other comments, ladies? Councillors?
I was asked to raise one by a citizen that was in the bylaw, or who's read the bylaw, and I said I would, because it's an interesting one, and that was the ability to connect to utilities while in operation. And there's a difference between water and sewer. And currently, just for everyone's knowledge, it says you cannot connect to water during hours of operation. And the point of that is we don't have water meters.
Yeah.
So if you have two businesses on the same property and one's a street vendor and they're pulling double the water, the utility bill is still the same. So it's very hard to measure that. Sewer is more based on the fact that we don't allow, for example, RVs to pull up on a piece of property and dump their sandy into the sewer. And so that's applying the same principles that we'd apply to any other RV. Any person who owns a lot can't just park their RV and dump. And so say, well, why should a business be different? And so I just wanted to point out to council that that's why the way it was, but there was a request there to consider that.
Well, I don't agree with the generators in the downtown core. Being that I live off-grid with a generator on for backup power in the wintertime, there's no way that I would buy property in town and listen to a generator run downtown. So that's the only thing I don't see in here specifically.
And I think if we can find a way to address that, because I think that's probably where some of the concerns are that are being maybe not raised directly to the village office, but that have been raised out on the street is, I agree, I wouldn't want to be one of these residential people that's living just behind Fifth Ave and hear a noisy generator and smell grease from French fries.
So,
we need to make sure we take some of that into consideration. And
would it be all right if I spoke to the language around that?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So it's clause 6.2 says street vendors and mobile vendors that are using generators, so it allows the use of generators, must ensure that generators are quiet and are not causing a disturbance, as per the village noise control bylaw, which may change from time to time. The current noise control bylaw is from the 80s or early 90s, and it basically says you can't cause a disturbance at any time. And it's very broad and generic, but any generator would apply, that saying it's a disturbance. Where it becomes gray, I would think, is this mobile vendor who's here, say for an event and is setting up on Elm Street for a ball game and wants to have a generator for 5 hours for the ball game. Maybe that's okay, but the downtown one is not. I would make the argument that staff's discretion on the person that's here for just a day or so could determine that. But when it comes to council under that process for consideration, that's very much like the land use process. And say, for example, under the temporary use permit process, council has the option to put considerations and conditions on a temporary use permit. For example, the hours of operations are going to be such, number of parking spots is going to be X. That same process could then apply to this. So if Dave Grant came with an application to be downtown, you could say, yes, it's approved, but with the condition that no generators in the downtown core. So there's that little bit of ambiguity and flexibility built in for staff to council for the differing situations.
Well, and it also kind of like as far as having businesses on or having mobile vendors on private property downtown, it kind of forces a relationship with whoever they're getting written consent with to have their business on their land, to have the relationship of plugging in. You know, it kind of limits the opportunity, yet it doesn't take all the opportunities away, to have like that kind of symbiotic relationship to be able to plug in.
Absolutely.
And the other thing I wanted to talk about was, or comment on, was just a little bit of the opinion of the businesses downtown, and most of it's secondhand and coffee shop and internet and all the rest of it. This is where I appreciate the red tape in the bylaw, because it does give opportunity to have public comment. That if there is an operation that is that people are really concerned about, that they do get to have their voice heard before any council makes a decision on it. Because I do feel at this point we are a small village, and I welcome any new business that that has motivated people who want to serve the public. So. I know I ripped the bylaw apart with you before, but I've come around to really appreciate it. So, yeah.
Okay. That's it for comments. Did you get all those notes?
Yep. I've got the one. I had to look at.
That's the one I meant.
Yep.
Okay. So what do we do now? Proceed.
Probably craft a resolution. The staff recommendation won't really work as a resolution.
Okay.
So maybe ask someone for a motion.
Okay, so we just need a motion for Corporate Officer Hutchins to make the changes that were discussed today and bring it back for second reading. Councillor Blanchette and Councillor Salt. And all in favor? Thank you. So we'll move on. We have no unfinished business. Correspondence for action. We have a letter from the Valemount Children's Activity Society. So who wants to read it out?
I just have a comment. Is this a conflict of interest for our corporate officer?
That's what I'm wondering.
It's a great question. I talked about it with CIO and Yanciw.
Yep.
And we deemed it wasn't because I can't vote.
Okay. Just okay. Good.
So I'll just talk about what the letter is. So Braden Hutchins is the president of the Valemount Children's Activity Society, and he's submitted a letter to council seeking permission to convert the current office space into an activity room for children under 30 months. Key renovations would include the installation of a second interior door and shelving. The current storage area would then be partially used for office space. The proposed renovations are important as there are an estimated 10 children without available daycare in Valemount, and these renovations would help to fill that need. So what the Valemount Children's Society is asking for is just a letter of support.
I'll move that.
Councillor Bullock and Councillor Blanchette, and all in favor?
I just have a question.
Oh, sorry.
I'm absolutely in support of the Children's Activity Society. I'm just wondering, where are we at with an agreement, a lease agreement with the organization?
Here's where it becomes awkward. I'm putting on my hat right now as president of the Valemount Children's Activity Society for 30 seconds. I can't speak to that. Being an employee of the village, Gord Peters, our treasurer, is currently leading the negotiations with the Village of Valemount on that lease. And I have not been involved in any of the conversations, and I could not speak to where it's at.
So we are still in negotiations, so that's still...
Yeah.
Okay.
Councillor Bullock would know more than me.
Yeah, we are. We met with them recently, and things are going well.
Okay.
I'll just put it that way. But I just want to comment on this letter. There's been concern about lack of space in the daycare, so as a mother now, I'm really glad to see that this is proceeding forward, and so I fully support it.
Good plan.
It won't get us all the way there.
Yeah.
It's only 3
It'll
spots
help,
at this
yeah.
current renovation based on licensing requirements
Yeah.
would allow, but it would double our capacity for
Right.
children under 30 months.
Great.
I remember the space from the last time I toured in there. I think it's a good idea to
Yeah.
utilize that space better to enable more numbers to be
Yeah.
in there, so, okay.
So there's been a motion on the table for us to write a letter in support, and we just need an all in favor. Okay. 7.2.
I'm going to step out.
Yes. So because Councillor Blanchette works for the local library, she cannot be a part of the discussion. So So there's been a letter written to Mayor and Council from the Valemount Public Library, and it says that they are interested in applying for funding in order to refinish the exterior logs of the building, replace the roadside sign, and for replacement of the exterior doors of the building, which are not functioning adequately. We're requesting a letter of support from Council for these upgrades to the building, as it is a village-owned structure. Thank you for considering this request. Do you have any questions at all, ladies?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Councillor Bullock and Councillor Salt, and all in favor? Okay, thank you. We just need to have those headphones that they have in all those game shows, where people just sit here with the headphones. Oh yeah, we're on camera, but okay. All right, we're going to move forward to the reading file. Anybody want to pull anything out of the reading file?
Yes.
Okay, Councillor Blanchette.
So I just wanted to inform everybody that the Northern Health Board meeting is going to be held here in Valemount at the Best Western Hotel. February 17th from 1 to 3:30 in the Eagles View meeting room. And if you are interested in speaking about anything or want to request for a presentation, there's a phone number to call and an email address. The deadline is February 5th. Is that already passed? Why are we just getting this now then?
Because the meeting's still happening.
Okay, so if you would like to attend the meeting, it is February 17th from 1 to 3:30 in the Eagles View room at the Best Western. And again, that's the Northern Health Board meeting.
Unfortunately, we just received that late last week.
Pardon?
That just came in late last week.
Okay.
And I received the same, actually, I think on Thursday of last week.
Okay, well, I apologize that they were late then. But it would be a good idea, if you have any kind of concerns, I'm sure they'll have a few minutes afterwards, if people have something they want to mention or discuss, it should be a good meeting.
On that note, we'll just make a motion to accept the reading file. Councillor Bullock and Councillor Salt, and all in favor? Oops. Okay, sorry, I just pressed the wrong button on my... All right. Administrator reports. So 9.1, we have the community conversation summary. And this is just to provide a summary to council of the community conversations held on November the 28th. Do you have any comments?
Good report.
Questions?
Good summary.
Okay. So can we have a motion to accept this report? Councillor Bullock and Councillor Salt, and all in favor? 9.2, Three Ranges Brewing Company Lounge and Patio Endorsement Summary. So, corporate...
Would you like me to set it up?
Yeah, let's set it up.
In November, the village received an application from the Liquor Control and Licensing Branch regarding the Three Ranges Brewing Company's lounge and patio endorsement. In summary, the lounge and patio endorsement put forward by Michael Lewis and the Three Ranges Brewing Company is twofold. First of all, it asks for permission to serve his beer by the pint or other size that he deems necessary, both in the current existing tasting room, which would then also be the lounge, and once built, a patio outside. The capacity that he's applied for is a total of 53 persons. On the application it says 53 in the building, anything for the patio to be taken from inside, but Dean Schneider, our building inspector, has given him a capacity of 32 inside. So it'd be 32 at capacity inside and 20 1 on the outside for 53. One of the significant processes in the Three Rangings Brewing Company or any organization or company receiving a lounge endorsement like this is the public consultation and the community piece. And so what the Liquor Control and Licensing branch has done is they've referred it to us to run the public consultation process. And so I've been working with a woman named Janine down in Victoria to design a process that would be suitable for Valemount, yet meet the needs of Victoria and the provincial requirements. And so what you likely have noticed if you've driven downtown in the last couple of days is a 4x8 sign that's now tacked to the window of the Three Ranges Brewing Company that outlines the process. And that's going to be up for a minimum of 30 days. So it went up on the weekend. Advertisements are running in the local papers. And they have to be for a minimum of 2 consecutive papers. We'll be sending out a letter to all nearby residents within 0.8 kilometers of the brewery. And that's a little bit different than what we use when we do temporary use permits and whatnot, but that's the distance that is requested by the Liquor Control and Licensing branch. We're going a little bit above and beyond by offering a public hearing at the next council meeting at 6:30 p.m. Big communities don't do that, but given the size of Valemount, Jean and I thought that it might be, because we do public hearings for most other land use processes, that it would be appropriate to do it at this level. And taking any comments received over the next month and at the public hearing, we would then have a formal council resolution, whereas therefore be it resolved that I would draft beforehand as corporate officer and bring to council for consideration. The resolution would be drafted based on the comments that have come in, and then the resolution itself would then be sent to the Liquor Control and Licensing branch. And the big things to comment on for council on that resolution are what was received by the public in terms of comments, what council thinks the hours of operation should be. Now, Michael Lewis has asked for 7 days a week, 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. The occupancy and the lounge of the patio. Great. So this is just the start of that 30-day process, and we'll see it wrap up on March 11th.
Thank you, Corporate Hutchins. So this, oh, sorry. Councillor Salt?
I'm just wondering, have we been granted an extension by the Liquor Control Board? Because I saw that they gave us a 90-day deadline.
Yes.
We're under the wire.
I didn't include that letter in there. Because of the office closure over Christmas and a number of other issues, bylaws on the agenda, we asked for a 3-month extension, which was granted.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, great question.
Any other questions, councillors? Okay, so if we can just move to receive this for information. Councillor Bullock and Councillor Blanchette, all in favor? Okay. 9.3, National Energy Board intervenor status. So, Corporate Hutchins, I'm going to have you speak on this one as well.
Okay.
Okay.
The National Energy Board is currently soliciting applications for interested parties to apply for intervenor status for the Kinder Morgan pipeline. What Valemount and staff are proposing that we proceed with an application for intervenor status in partnership with the Regional District of Fraser Fort George to prepare joint submissions regarding the pipeline. What the application for intervenor status essentially looks like is there's about 12 points that they're looking at, key themes, environmental impact, social impact, et cetera, on what the implications, positive or negative, of the pipeline would have on affected communities. And what the application would do would essentially outline all the potential issues, both positive and negative, that give rationale for why we should have the right, and the regional district should have the right to speak to the National Energy Board, and that would be done on behalf of a lawyer who would typically speak to the National Energy Board. And so this is just merely the first step in a longer process of actually making sure we're heard at the national level.
That's great.
So if there aren't any questions, we need a motion to approve staff to proceed with filling out the application. Councillor Blanchette and Councillor Salton, all in favor? Okay, 9.4, labor market analysis. So basically this report is to inform council of a proposed labor market analysis project in partnership with other corridor communities. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a lot.
Okay.
I'm gonna wait till our CAO comes back to ask those questions.
Okay,
But this is only for information only today.
right.
Yeah.
So can I have
I'll
a
make a
mo-
motion to receive it.
Okay, Councillor Blanchette and Councillors Bullock, all in favor? 9.5, the timber supply review. And again, this is another information-only report. Does anybody want me to read it out?
I think maybe just the comments from the village would be great, because I think they're, it's
Okay.
thoughtful.
Okay, for those, and because nobody has a copy of the agenda or what's going on. So comments on the Robson Valley Timber Supply Review for public discussion paper. Councillor Bullock, would you like to read them out?
Sure, yeah.
Okay,
The annual allowable cut should be reduced to the committed volume only to ensure sustainable forest in the Robson Valley. The cedar, number 2, the cedar and hemlock cut should remain unpartitioned as local demand for these and other species exists. 3, the chief forester should continue with improved systematic collection of data and forest information for assessment and analysis for the realistic inventory information. 4, the process should support stand tending and harvesting activities that protect against large-scale fire, pest or disease outbreaks where feasible and ecologically appropriate. Number 5, the Robson Valley TSR 4 should establish annual allowable cuts at the level that also acknowledges non-timber forest values, such as spiritual, cultural, food harvesting, and recreational forest values. 6, the process must continue with the commitment regarding the Canoe Mountain Special Management Zone as expressed in the Canoe Mountain Ecosystem Design and Multi-Use Strategy compiled in 2001. And 7, the Village of Valemount remains committed to supporting First Nations forest tenure in their traditional territories in the Robson Valley.
The question, I imagine this came in consultation with the community forest.
Yes, of course,
Through
yeah.
their recommendations. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Great, thank you. No, it was good.
okay, so motion to receive, Councillor Blanchette and Councillor Bullock, all in favor. So the Economic Development Officer's report. So this is from Sylvia Gislimberti, and it's to approve the participation of Mayor McCracken to the 6th Annual Conference of Kangia that will be held in Calgary from March 26th to the 28th, and an option to only participate in the direct use workshop of March the 28th. So,
Do you know if he's gonna be mobile by then?
What his preference is.
Yeah.
his preference is to go.
Yeah.
But is he
Yeah,
gonna
but
be
for
able
the-
to?
Yeah.
Is he gonna be
I don't know
okay
the
to go?
answer to that question.
So why don't we just leave that with him? If he's able to go, then,
So
him
just
to go.
approve in theory,
yeah.
basically?
He'll know
Yeah,
if he's-
I mean, I would like to make a comment, because this is for geothermal, which is great, because it's an opportunity for the loudest voice to be at a conference where it can be heard with other people that are on the same track. And just as far as the direct use application and opportunities workshop, it says, developers, have you ever tried to think of creative ways to improve your project's economic and building strong relationships with the community you operate in? So I think it's a really good opportunity if you can get there
Yeah.
to collaborate with some people in the field. I'm excited for them, if you can get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it looks like Kenji is going to pay to go too, so that's even better.
I'll make the motion. if she's
Okay, Councillor
mobile.
Bullock and Councillor Blanchette.
Just to clarify, it's for the full conference,
For
the
the full
26th to
conference.
the 28th.
Okay.
Yeah, and the workshop on the 28th, too,
Okay.
right, including that.
Okay.
And all in favor? So 10.2, the Economic Development Officer Monthly Report by Silvio. Anybody want to pull anything out of there? If not, need a motion to accept. Councillor Blanchette and Councillor Bullock, all in favor? Public Works Report 11.1. For information only, anything need to be pulled out of there? Motion.
Or accept?
Councillor Blanchette and Councillor Salt, all in favor? The Building Inspector Report for January 12.1. Councillor Bullock and Councillor Salt, all in favor? We have no bylaw officer report because we don't have a bylaw officer. We have no financial report. Bylaws and policies 15.1, temporary street vendor bylaw number 715/2014. And the recommendation is that council approves fourth and final reading of the temporary street bylaw number 715/2014.
Yeah, I noticed he's open today and plugged in, so it's good to see him up.
Okay. Do we have any questions or comments? No? Okay. So a motion to approve fourth reading. Councillor Bullock and Councillor Salt, all in favor? 15.2, official community plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment for 1980 Cranberry Place, which was the subject of the public hearing earlier today. And the recommendation is that council approves third and fourth reading of the official community plan amendment number 711/2014. Do we have any questions?
Can we do that?
It's a great question.
Normally you have to have,
So, section 899 of the Local Government Act says that a council may adopt an official community plan or zoning bylaw amendment at the same meeting which the plan or bylaw passed third reading. So this is the one exception that you don't have to give 24 hours between third and fourth reading is for an official community plan and zoning bylaw amendment.
okay.
Thank you, Corbett.
Because you're on the hook if we're good.
It took about an hour to find that clause.
I know there is an exception, I couldn't remember though if it was for this, so.
That's a great question.
Okay, so with that said, then a motion to approve third and fourth reading. Councillor Blanchette and Councillor Salton, all in favor? 15.3, 15,
Your
oh,
worship, I apologize. Could we get a second resolution for the zoning bylaw amendment?
sure.
Just for separate, to do the
Okay.
two amendments through separate readings.
Okay. So for the council approved third and fourth reading of the zoning bylaw amendment number 712/2014, it's Councillor Blanchette and Councillor Salton, all in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Corbett Hutchins. 15.3, development permit 0114, patio for Three Ranges Brewing Company. And that the recommendation is that council authorizes staff to prepare and issue the permit. Does anybody have any questions? So we'll make,
Recommendation?
Councillor Bullock will make the recommendation, second is by Councillor Blanchette. I'm going to call everybody by your first name.
Of course.
All in favor? All right. 15.4, development various permit for the Lions Club, 0214. So the recommendation is that council authorizes staff to prepare the draft permit and to notify the public of council's intention to issue the permit. So this is at 1100 Main Street, and you have all the documentation. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Salt.
So it looks like they're in this process applying for the actual variance to the setbacks that are in existence. And then addition to the front of the building, that's not going to have any impact on setbacks, though. It will be within those setbacks?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a great question. Yeah, it's just the two sides.
Is there any parking requirements or considerations for that? Will that impact their parking?
No, it shouldn't, because there's that big space in the front, then there's the parking in front of the Lions. So they're gonna use that. That shouldn't interfere with parking.
Shouldn't interfere with their parking.
That's a great question. Going down that path, will be an interesting one because it will, how do I say this delicately? Section or Schedule B of the zoning bylaw, parking requirements are tough to achieve for any business or any organization.
Yeah.
And really ensuring that they have the parking there and it meets those requirements may significantly alter this development variance permit.
So they may have to apply for a parking variance as well?
Well, how far past the tree are they gonna go?
I know, but.
Because there's all that space in between the tree and the building, and then the tree and the edge, and then there's the parking.
So that's a great point. The tree's going to come out.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Did they say they were taking the tree out?
Yes.
Yeah.
From what I understand, the tree's coming out.
Okay, so,
No, I'm in support of this. I just,
Yeah.
you know me, I'm always thinking a few steps ahead or trying to,
Yeah.
you know, because these are going to be issues that,
you know, when I look at their plans, I don't see it being in it, but
yeah, no. I mean, it's a small addition, but probably park my car in there.
Yeah, there you go.
so where's the library parking? We're right there, we'll let them park.
Yeah,
And everybody can walk, being a healthy community.
yeah, there you go.
Come right off the Bigfoot Trail and into the Lions Club.
That's right.
Yeah.
So can we have a motion to have staff issue the permit to the Lions Club?
Yeah.
Councillor Blanchette and Councillor Bullock, and all in favor? Okay. So, come to the best part, council reports.
I'll go first.
Okay.
I have nothing.
All right, good.
You have nothing?
I have nothing.
Oh, my goodness.
I'll go second.
Congratulations.
I have nothing either. All right.
That leaves you and I.
Show
Yeah,
time.
You want
I
to go
got
first
some.
or me? I'll go.
Go ahead.
I actually just had one meeting in the last week, that was last Thursday, with the 2014 Trans-Canada Yellowhead Highway Association AGM planning working group. And we're really coming along with our plans, getting really excited. I'll have to do a follow-up with the manager at the Best Westerns to let them know where we're at. But yeah, it's things are chugging along, and we're getting confirmations of keynote speakers, and we have a chamber board member that's now sitting on the working group as well, who's going to be actively going out and talking to the local businesses as well. And we're also going to be really trying to involve the community as much as we can. There are limitations, you know, the general public can't just attend the AGM, but we just really want to try and get the whole community involved in welcoming the delegates into the community and encouraging them to shop, play, stay, you know, as long as possible. So
What's the date again?
May 14th to, wait, I'll be 17th.
Okay.
April, May, yep, there we go, 14th through the 17th, right before May long weekend, so we're hoping to get some of the delegates to extend their, quite often when we're done our AGM, we all hop in our cars and rush away and go home because it's a long drive and got to get back. Well, now with this being a long weekend right after, we're hoping that some of them might stay a little longer and play in our community, so it's really exciting. So we'll keep you posted on updates.
Good deal.
And that's it for me.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan.
I had a tourism meeting and a community forest meeting. Our annual general meeting actually was last Tuesday as well. I'll talk tourism first because that was the first meeting I had. We have a request for proposals put out by the tourism committee for advertising in the Valemount Trails and map and our summer winter guide for 2014 and 2015. And I think this is a good opportunity to talk about it, because it'll be in the papers as well. It's a great opportunity for qualified businesses, societies, or groups or individuals to provide a contract service for Tourism Valemount, to do the layout and design for our tearaway maps and our summer winter guides. You are to be either a graphic designer or hire a person of experience for the layout and design of the ads. We have set rates that are established. And I can't remember where the deadline is for submissions. I think it's at the end of the month, because you would start by March the 7th And if you have any questions, you can be in touch with Silvio at the village office for more details. But I'm just excited because it's job creation. So just putting it out there for everybody. And then we had our community forest annual general meeting later that evening. We were attended by 3 public and 1 press. And I would encourage more people to come out to our meeting every year because we had a 1-page highlights and more information about our harvesting program. And I would like to rattle off all of these things here, but I realize it's probably not the time and the place to do it. But that's pretty much all I did.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bullock.
Thanks.
Okay, now we're going to proceed to the public comment. So the rules are you have to talk about what we talked about, to state your name and where you live, and it has to be under 2 minutes. All right. All right, so on that note, we will proceed to in camera, which is a legal matter, and thank you all for coming. So we will adjourn this meeting. Okay? All right, all in favor? Thanks. Thanks for coming.